Hey guys, here of Legend Tomorrow, Season 2, Episode 3, Shogun, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. I've really been enjoying this season so far, but I really didn't know where we were going to go after the events of the last episode. Justice Society of America, seemed like it was going to continue, but of course Rex was killed, and we didn't really know where we were going to go from here, and let me just say, this is an episode that I feel like in season one would have been very generic and very forgettable, but because of the great character dynamics and because of what they're doing with the characters this season, this was a really great episode. I really did love this episode overall. I thought there were some really fun moments here, and Nick Zano continues to kill it here. Honestly, he seems to be the highlight of this. He honestly could be the highlight of this entire season. I'm shocked. I thought he was going to be a throwaway character, but he's so much more than that. Let's just get in this episode because it actually did focus the most on Nate, not Haywood. Nobody calls him that. I don't know why I've called him that, Nate. But let's just get in this episode because there is definitely stuff to talk about. So after checking in on Nate's medical progress, Stein and Ray are surprised, knocked out by Amaya, who follows that up by getting the jump on Sarah and Jax before finally holding a knife on Mick, blaming him for killing our man. She feels that he's the one that did it, and after a brief tussle, she's about to kill Mick when she's stopped by Nate, whose entire body is seemingly made out of liquid metal. Now, we don't know how this is happening or what's going on here, but he's as surprised as anybody else about it, and I loved how he's trying to figure out what his name should be, because, of course, his father was, as we know, not Captain Steel. His father was Steel, and he feels that he should be Steel as well. His grandfather, I mean, not his father. His grandfather was Steel, and basically, we see Sarah volunteers Ray to help Steel learn the ropes of his powers, then goes to check on Amaya, and I did like that scene with him trying to figure out, really what to do about, but him also enjoying it. I thought that was a lot of fun, but she goes to check on Amaya. She threatens to escape and kill Mick, explaining that she believes he killed, that he's the one that killed Rex. It had to have been him, but Sarah admits that they have been tracking a rogue time traveler and that it might be the killer, and she makes Amaya promise not to kill Mick unless they can confirm that he actually deserves it, because, I mean, yeah, Mick did betray their trust last season, as we know, but it seems that they've got him they're on good terms with him, he's not really done anything that bad. I get why she thinks that. He looks very shady and definitely looks like something she could paint as the killer, but I know for a fact that Mick would not just straight up kill Rex. We know that he definitely did not do that. So I do like where that's headed, though. But Amaya, she hasn't known, Mick nearly as long as they have, so it makes sense why she thinks that. So in another room, Ray explains that he thinks the threat presented by Amaya triggered an adrenal response, and that's what made Steel's powers manifest. And he decides to test his theory by firing one of his gauntlets at his fellow legend, and that really sets up the rest of the episode overall. We see Sarah's bringing Maya through the ship, explaining that there's since a rogue time traveler involved, they can't just travel back and save Hourman without running the risk of making the bad guy aware of it. They know who it is. They don't know that it's Reverse Flash. I think it's Reverse Flash and Dark. I think those are the two, but they don't know who it is yet. They just know that there's obviously a guy in pursuit of them, and if they can't risk really what they're doing, which honestly does make sense. I mean, if they try to go back, it could really risk making things even worse. So basically, leading him to travel back further and kill Hourman earlier, further damaging time. She tries to send Amaya away, telling her that she promises resolution, but Amaya insists on staying until the killer is brought to justice. Thus, that is why Amaya is part of this main cast. And I gotta say, the actress that's playing her is doing a really great job. I'm glad to see that she's still on the show because I really think she's fitting in pretty well, honestly. She's what I wanted Kendra, that was her name, Kendra's character to be last season, at least so far. She's what I wanted Kendra's character to be last season. She's interesting, she is a badass, and she doesn't seem too interested when it comes to romance. I mean, I think her and Ray are probably going to start something. I've heard about that, but I think it's going to be for a while. Definitely, I think this is going to be her plot for a while, and I like that. But Ray and Nate are then testing Nate's powers. Ray gets thrown up against a cargo door, knocking it open. Just some really fun training scenes. I really enjoyed it. The two are then thrown out into the time stream, and with the ship momentarily damaged, Ray tricks Nate to feudal Japan, where each of them crash into the ground, making a significant crater, and when Ray awakes, his crater is surrounded by samurai, one of whom knock him from out behind, and they end up in like 15-something, I don't remember what the year was, but it was like 15-something, and when Nate awakes, he's on the back of a horse being led by a young woman, Masako, and she leads Nate to her father, whom she wants to care for. Her father's very reluctant because they don't really allow a lot of, I believe, they call them stowaways or something like that. They don't allow people that aren't of their own kind, but she takes a liking to Nate right away over his own protest that if the Shogun Tokugawa Iemitsu finds out, he will object, we see. So this really is the reason why this episode is so good. I think the interaction between Nate and Masako really makes up for a lot of this episode. Like I said, it could have been very forgettable, but because of how great of a character Nate already is, I really thought they did some great stuff with him here. But in a cell, Rei's being chained up. He's interrogated by the Shogun's men. When the Shogun himself comes to claim the armor over Rei's objections, he clearly wants Rei's Atom suit. Rei really has no choice but to give it to him. So that really sets up the main conflict here. But back in the village, Masako is helping bathe Nate, who upsets her by asking about the Shogun. And as it turns out, he's actually historically notorious. He's kind of like a wanted fugitive, and she's engaged to be married to him against her will tomorrow. She really has no choice. This is just something that she has to do, and you can tell right away there's definitely a lot of sexual tension between these two. I mean, right away he's asking her, why are you bathing me? She says it's just because she wants to help him, but you can definitely tell there's something there, and that definitely does drive a lot of this episode. But back on the Wave Rider, Amaya and Mick continue to argue until Sarah finally is enough, tells them to knock it off. Some fun stuff between them, definitely. I think it is definitely going to get darker, but I liked that it was fun here. Jax continues to work away at repairing the ship, and Jax does that a lot. A lot of times, Jax is always called to repair the ship, but when he thinks he's done, Stein actually runs a diagnostics report, during which it's revealed that there's actually an extra compartment in the ship that Jax was never aware of, so the two decide to track it down, and I thought this was cool, actually, the way that they are trying to find the secret compartment. This is something that Rip kept from them, and now that Rip is gone, they really don't have any restrictions, and I like seeing that. I like that there aren't too many, I mean, there are rules, definitely, of things they can't do. When it comes to exploring the Wave Rider, you know, Rip was always so strict about it. Now that he's not there, it really doesn't matter if they explore certain areas that he wouldn't have wanted them to, because he's not there. So in the village, Masako is approached by the Shogun's men, who ask her if she's seen any foreigners. She denies it, but before they can leave, Nate comes out to confront them, and honestly, pretty badass scene. I kind of felt like I was watching a Western movie, and he takes a beating when his powers won't work, including a sword to the gut, and they leave him there to bleed out and make a veiled threat to Masako about the dangers of surprises, and later she and her father try to nurse Nate back to health, but as a hemophiliac, obviously he's pretty sure he's screwed as he drifts off into unconsciousness. I mean, as we know, when since he's a hemophiliac, however you pronounce it, because he is, it's a lot harder for him to heal quicker, because he doesn't have any clots and things like that, and just, I think that really is adding to his character. Nate's obviously not going to die, but it is very well done the way they set that up. So elsewhere in the woods, Mick, Amaya, and Sarah are in period clothes, are tracking the Atom suit, all while arguing because Mick is obsessed with ninjas, and Amaya is sure they don't exist. This is yet another reason why Amaya really does not like Mick. Amaya is very rational. Mick, as we know, is always into violence, and he always talks about it and things like that, but Sarah, using League of Assassins as evidence, sides with Mick. She knows that there obviously are ninjas. I mean, hell, she was a part of it at one point. So, and she dated someone that was in the League of Assassins. I mean, her and Nissa, they dated. So, obviously, she knows that the League of Assassins is real. And I get why Amaya thinks that, because I guess where she was, they just believe that it's not there, but I like the way that Amaya's not as experienced as we think she is, because if she was this perfect, experienced fighter who, knew everything there was to know, which she thinks she does, then she'd be a boring character, but she doesn't know everything she needs to know. There's still a lot more for her to know, and I like that she's just as much a part of this journey, and she's not just there. I mean, yeah, she's there to obviously find Rex's killer, but I think she's also there to be a silent observer, and I really do like that. So, well, not a silent observer, but more like just an observer. And so on the Wave Rider, Stein and Jax find a secret door that leads them to a keypad set up by Rip, and Jax was reluctant to try to crack it. We don't know what it is, but this was very intriguing, definitely, as to what that keypad really was. So nearby, Amaya, Sarah, and Mick find the Shogun wearing the Atom armor when they track it down, and while Rei breaks out of his cell, Sarah and the Shogun's lieutenant, the one who stabbed Nate, square off, and when he starts to get the better of her, Vixen actually is able to knock him down, but the Shogun has figured out how to make the energy blast from the suit work. He chases them down, they rescue Rei, and they luckily are able to make their escape, which I was happy to see that they did make their escape there. They're able to get away from him, but at Masako's home, Nate realizes the serum has actually healed his hemophilia, surprisingly, which I was surprised about this, but yeah, he's completely healed, and he tells Masako about the condition. The two seem to have this connection, and they're about to kiss when Rei and the others come to retrieve him. Rei thought clearly that they were going to have sex, and I kind of thought that too, but he tells them they have to stay and present the Shogun for marrying Masako, and This is something I liked about this episode that I noticed that they did a lot in season 1, but they didn't do here. They didn't at all rush this relation between Masako and Nate. I thought these two were going to kiss and they were possibly going to get married or something, but they didn't do that, and they did that a lot last season. They had these one episode love interests that just were there for one episode, and they were good and all, but they just didn't really go anywhere with them, and this really gives us something to build upon. The fact that Masako and Nate never actually had any sort of affection for each other physically really does foreshadow that I think we are definitely going to see Masako again. Maybe even this season. I definitely could see that happening. So he tells them they have to stay and protect and prevent the Shogun from marrying Masako, and Sarah realizes that it's easier to defend a village than storm a castle. So they plan to take out the Shogun and his men when he comes to retrieve his bride, because obviously they want to protect her. So on the ship, Jackson and Stein are looking over the hidden room, apparently an armory, and what they find I found to be very intriguing, because again, this gives us something to build upon, and it shows why the show isn't just doing, one-off episodes. There's more they can do with this. Basically, it wakes up a computer screen, and there's a voice message from Barry. Not Barry now, Barry 40 years from now in 2056. He has a message that he wants Rip to keep a secret, even from the rest of his team, and I bet you that's definitely has something to do with Flashpoint. Definitely, I think something that Barry has done has made things really bad 40 years from now. We just don't really know what that's all about. We don't find out what it is either, and I think it's something that we might not find out till the crossover. I think that's when we're going to find out what it is. I think this perfectly sets up the crossover. There's definitely something going on there, but that's going to be very interesting as to where that's going to go. I really did like that overall, because that's definitely interesting. And the way that Grant Gustin was able to disguise his voice, I mean, you knew it was Grant Gustin, but he sounded a lot older, a lot gruffer, and he did a really good job with that. It's not easy to do, honestly, to sound older than you are, but Ray works with Nate, trying to get his powers to come back online. Ray reveals the only way to feed the Shogun is actually to blow the suit up, leaving Ray with nothing, which he really doesn't want to do, but if they have to, they have to. There really is no other way to do that, so elsewhere in the village, Amaya and Sarah talk about Amaya's powers and the trust Sarah has for Mick, and I like the way that Sarah is justifying Mick. It isn't trying to, demonize Mick or anything. She actually is defending Mick, and I really did like the way that's done. That's something I definitely do see more of this season. There's definitely a lot more of a team dynamic. Everyone seems more like a family, and you definitely are getting that vibe a lot more this season than you did in the previous one. But at Masako's house, her father tells Rei a story of his son, for whom he made the strongest armor and the best sword in Japan. He says that Shogun actually ordered his son to commit seppuku in order to remove the popular samurai from his men. He tells Rei to follow him. Really good backstory overall, and it was easy to follow, too. This wasn't really all that confusing. You understood why you wanted to do this. And elsewhere, Nate continues to struggle with his lack of powers, talking to Masako, who gives him some advice. And when the Shogun and his men approach, he sends her to hide and goes to confront the Shogun. He's blasted into unconsciousness by a blast from the Atom suit, and then Rei shows up with the armor and sword of Masako's brothers, who challenge him. And outside a nearby temple, a group of the Shogun's men, led by his lieutenant, corner Sarah, but between her skulls and Amaya's powers, they manage to fend the men off, which Rei does square off with the Shogun. And in the nearby woods, Mick ends up getting attacked by a trio of ninjas who are just about to drag him away to his final fate. Sarah and Amaya are nearly finished with the men when Mick, wearing a ninja's outfit, takes out the final pair, and after knocking Rei over, the Shogun's attacked by Masako, who takes up her brother's sword, which Rei had dropped. Masako was actually a badass. I was surprised she was able to fight as well as she did, but he quickly gets the better of her, though, is about to deliver a killing blow when Nate shows up. Now is Steel, and while Sarah kills the Shogun's lieutenant, Nate successfully destroys the suit using the placement and mythology, and Rei showed him earlier. He apologizes to Rei, but Rei says he's proud of his friend figuring out his powers, and just a really well done scene. I thought it was really satisfying overall, seeing that Nate actually learned it on his own. He needed Rei, but at the same time, this really helped him out and gave him a lot more confidence, and I really did like that. And you really do feel happy for Nate because, he really did like this girl. And that night, Nate starts to ask Masako out, but she tells him that he has to return to the sky. They kiss. He gives her the katana, telling her that he saw how honorably she stood up to the Shogun earlier. He suggested she could be the villager's protector. And she even does hint that they're definitely going to see each other again. She says, I know our paths will cross again soon. So definitely these two somehow are going to meet up again. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Masako. I like what we saw of her in this episode. Just really good stuff from those two. Really good stuff, really fun stuff overall. And I really did like what we got there. But Ray then asks Masako's father his family name. It's actually Yamashiro, the family of the Suicide Squad's katana. So that was kind of cool that we found that out. There was a nice little subtle connection the way they did that. And They can actually, of course, reference Suicide Squad, because as we know, the movie didn't do so well, so they can, I guess they're referencing it now, but everyone says their goodbyes with Mick upset that he has no proof that ninjas exist, and, he thought that he'd had the proof, but he didn't. But later in the ship, Amaya tells him that she knows he's not really such a bad guy behind his facade. He denies it. He feels he is actually a bad guy, and she tosses a ninja star at him, telling him it's evidence that the ninja really does exist, and I like the way that she already is starting to bond with him and that she's starting to realize that he's not as bad as she thought. Because it would kind of be dumb if the whole season she thinks it's Mick, and of course it's not. I like that already she's thinking rationally and thinking that it's not him. Just good stuff there. I like where that's headed. But then we get to the ending of the episode. We see as Sarah preps her takeoff, Jax and Stein debate whether or not to tell the team about Barry's message. They decide not to for now, and they go off on their next mission. We don't know where that's going to be. But that is the way the episode ends. Really good stuff overall. Let's get into this episode because I definitely do have stuff to say about it. Like I said, this is one of those episodes that I think could have easily been a throwaway or filler episode, but it really wasn't at all. I found this episode to be really interesting. The way it tapped into Nate's ability, what he's able to do is Steel. I mean, Steel is a badass, definitely. I think his name is going to be Citizen Steel when he is Steel, and don't quote me on that. I think it is, but Nick Zano is absolutely killing as his character. You can tell he's having a ton of fun, and that's something that wasn't really there with Ray last season. I feel like Ray last season, the problem with him, I mean, not Ray, Rip last season, that he was just always upset. He was always upset. He was always disciplining them. And Nate's just having a lot more fun. You definitely do see that. This is someone who hasn't really had as much experience with time travel and this kind of stuff. And I like the way he's having fun with it. Just a really great character overall. His, a whole thing with, his what do you call it? His hemophilia seems to be gone, which is interesting, but I like that moving forward he is going to be, in fact, I like that it did heal him overall, but definitely think there is going to be some sort of consequence with that. We'll have to see. That's definitely going to be interesting. Let's talk about this message with Barry, because we don't really know what that's all about. Like I said, I think this is definitely setting up the crossover that's going to be in, when we have that whole crossover in December. I think that's really what this is setting up, which is definitely going to be very interesting, but what's that really all about? Are we possibly going to go to 2056? I mean, there's definitely something going on there that's clearly something that is definitely a detriment to them, and they don't want to reveal it to anyone, but I'm sure it is going to come out at some point. We'll have to see. Amaya's convinced that Mick is the killer. I like that she definitely seems like she's not as convinced now, definitely. And you can see that Mick, he still feels that he is kind of has evil in him, but Mick is just a little bit more common in the season. You definitely do see that. So I like the way these two are already bonding, and I'm hoping that we definitely get more from them, because I like what we saw of Amaya. And Amaya is a character I definitely am really enjoying so far. I like what we're getting with her. She definitely was a lot of fun to watch. And I hope we see Masako again. I like the bonding between her and Nate. I thought it worked really well here. I thought those two had some really fun interactions, and just in general, I really bought the relationship. This is someone that really helped Nate tap into his powers, someone who made him a lot more confident, and just overall was just a lot of fun to watch. And that's something I will definitely say about this season in general. It's just a lot more fun. We don't have as many characters being like, oh, no, don't do this, or disciplining people because of this, and just taking things too seriously. Something that Rip did way too much, and I think something that the show did way too much, that they try to take it seriously. This season, it's serious to an extent, though. It's definitely a lot more fun, and I'm definitely having a lot more fun this season than I did last season. I'm really enjoying it because of that. And 3 episodes in, I'm still really liking what we're getting of it. Is it great TV? No, I'm not going to say it's great TV. There are so many plot holes, and there are so many things wrong, but it's one of those shows that's just so much fun that I can overlook all the plot holes, really. I can, because it's a fun show that has a really capable cast and has some really good stuff going forward. I think definitely there's going to be some interesting stuff happening. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love your thoughts on it. I will see you guys in the next video, which will be for tonight's episode, Legends Tomorrow, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.